Midlife relationships can be challenging to say the least. Not only do we have untold pressures, but it's also a time where we might experience profound changes in our life, such as grief, and come across things that need healing. We might also be changing as people and questioning how we wish to live the second act of our life.
In this episode, we share 7 tips to reclaiming connection, intimacy, and communication in your relationship, and offer new perspectives from a male and female point of view. We hope you enjoy it. Hi, I'm James Davis.
And I'm Claire Davis.
We're the Midlife Mentors, here to lift the lid on how to achieve health and happiness.
The balanced, no-nonsense way.
Hello, and I'm going to let Claire go first.
I wonder what you're going to do then. Hello and welcome to the Midlife Mentors podcast. I'm Claire.
I'm James.
And James, let me introduce you for the first time ever. We did actually have a client confirm that it is the case that James is always the one.
Yes, one of our listeners said, James does always
You're
introduce
right,
it
Claire.
first.
He said, you're right, Claire. And I said, yes, I'm always right. I'm always right.
Well, I wouldn't go quite that far, Claire. So let's not get ahead of ourselves.
So we're really excited to talk to you today about 7 ways to reignite your midlife relationship. Now, we've done a Relationships Secrets podcast a while back. If you haven't listened to that, go and check it out, because it's James and I sharing our own personal secrets, which sounds a bit ominous, but our own secrets to a happy, thriving relationship that we have with each other. But this is more based around the workshop, really, that we did a few months ago now on relationships, midlife relationships. And we just had a light bulb moment thinking we hadn't really shared it on our podcast.
No, and actually, when we did this, when we ran this masterclass, first of all, we were blown away by the amount of people that signed up. There seemed to be a real need for it. And the turnout was incredible. And the interaction was incredible. And the follow-up from people like asking more questions, wanting to know more. So we're like, oh, why have we sat on this so long? We should definitely make it into a podcast.
I know, we might even take it a little bit further. Sorry, that's my email pinging in the background. James is going to give me an evil.
I did tell you about that, didn't I?
Oh, but so communication is key, people. Communication is key. Also, having some self-awareness that James also does that all the time and leaves his email pinging on in the background. There we are. There's 2 key topics there: communication and self-awareness. No, it was also lovely because there was. Sometimes there's, it's more, we all know this, it's more women that kind of sign up to these sorts of things normally, but actually what was lovely was the amount of men we had on that workshop. It was a really beautiful experience, and we'd obviously created a really nice safe space for people, for men and for women, to come on and ask us lots of questions. So we were really honoured by that. So watch this space, because we might do more stuff with a plethora, love that word, of other things that we've got going on at the moment. We haven't got around to do anything more on relationships right now.
I think we definitely should, though. We
definitely should. So what else have we been up to, Mr. D? Just working, getting our heads down, really, for lots of...
Well, we took Friday afternoon off. We got to go to the World Rugby Sevens in Malaga, which was incredible. You know, see like international teams playing there. Really lovely stadium, open air. So we were out in the sunshine watching some Sevens rugby. It was fantastic.
Chilly though. Chilly.
It was chilly once the sun went down, yeah. Other than that, just been kind of working away, haven't we? The weather has not been great here in Marbella. I hate to say it, you know, the Marbella tourist board won't be my friends, but we've had a long period of
it's really
cloudy
funny.
Weather now.
One of their key USPs is how many days of sunshine do they say they have?
300 and something, 320, 340.
I sadly disagree, Marbella. But we're going to go off skiing, aren't we?
We are, that is the plan.
Not tomorrow, the day after.
Oh, well, I hope so. Fingers crossed.
Also watch this space on that, because I'm not a great skater. If anyone's heard the funny story about me taking James skating, when we first started dating, I took him ice skating to Somerset House for his birthday. So he thought wrongly that I was an amazing skater because I was just banging on about it the whole time. But actually, I just went for the mulled wine and the Christmas fairy lights, and I was clinging onto the edge for dear life. And James thought it was very funny. So we might be having that again for skiing.
Definitely won't abandon you at top of the mountain.
Isn't he lovely? Isn't he lovely? Also, tip number 3 is to take care of your loved one and not leave her at the top of a mountain.
I will. If I have to toboggan down with you in my lap, I will.
Toboggan. Is that allowed? So anyway, that's what we've been up to. So we wanted to do these 7 ways to reignite your midlife relationship. And the reason, we've kind of dived into a little bit, but the reason we ran that workshop and the reason we wanted to put this out as a podcast is because we have been training and coaching hundreds of midlife clients for over 10 years now. And relationships are a key challenge for many. And what we do with the Midlife Method, our 8-week program, and our one-to-one staff, it really does transform relationships. So people come to us, with the idea that they're going to change their relationship with their body, they're going to get healthier, fitter, potentially lose some weight if that's one of their goals. But actually, it transforms so many other things. One of those things is relationships. And James and I get asked about our personal experience a lot because I've been divorced twice. James has been divorced once. So we always get asked,
So far, Claire.
So it will be a third time, not third time lucky, but a third time divorce if you leave me at the top of the mountain. And also, we get asked how we've made our midlife relationship work, because obviously we're in each other's pockets. We work together, live together, just everything. Ski together, hopefully, as well. And we wanted to offer a male and female perspective to what's going on. I think that's really key, and that's what people really, really liked about that workshop that we ran. And obviously, especially since lockdown, we do know that divorce rates are going through the roof, especially at midlife. So what we hope to do more and more, and with the workshop we ran this podcast, is to potentially save even just a few from going down that road, because we've been there and we know it's messy and very, very hard. So through new conversations, new perspectives and a greater awareness, we hope to bring, hopefully we can avoid some more of those extra divorce rates if we can. So
this is for you. If you feel like you've worked hard to get where you are, but you've lost yourself and each other along the way, you become like those ships passing in the night, where you all get stuck on that endless treadmill of busy doing life. Maybe your career's taken over, maybe family, your kids have taken priority over your partner. Can't remember the last time you were intimate with each other or had sex. Questioning whether your life and relationship is fulfilling you. Struggling to communicate your emotions with each other and feeling like you're drifting apart each day. Sad that the connection and the compassion has gone and you can't figure out how it happened, why it happened, or how you can get back. Well, we're going to tell you now how you can do that, hopefully.
Yeah, so we just want to make sure that you, I don't know whether if you're driving the car or you want to just sit down, this probably is a really good one to go back to and make some notes as well, because we're going to touch on 7 of those tips for reviving the midlife relationship. But more than anything, like we said, we want to create an open and honest space. So please do feel like you can come back to us on this podcast as well. We always love that interaction. I know this is us talking at you through whatever device you're listening to us, whatever platform, but we do, it's different to doing a workshop where we get that interaction. But please don't feel like you can't come back to us and ask us questions around this podcast, because it's our passion to share the knowledge and educate, so you walk away with a great understanding of yourself, your partner, and what might need communicating to your partner and what might need healing in yourself, so you can create greater connection and intimacy.
So I guess part of the reason we fell into this was our own background. Obviously, we've given you a very brief history there, but as we're older in life, we end up carrying a lot of emotional baggage around with us. The longer we've been in life, the more baggage we've collected tends to be the case. And certainly when Claire and I got together, we were both carrying various bits of uncomfortable luggage that took a while to rid ourselves of. But, when you are with the right person, it is work worth doing. I mean, just some of the challenges we had. Claire left her life completely and moved to Ibiza. Took a massive risk there. Joined a business that wasn't hers. Yeah,
that was really tough for my little ego, joining a business that James had started with someone else.
I think both of us didn't feel safe for different reasons. Obviously, Claire, she jumped countries, jumped into business that wasn't hers. I was trusting someone with what was at that time my business.
It was so hard, wasn't it?
Yeah. Various people were trying to keep us apart. It was quite difficult. There wasn't a honeymoon period. Of course, we were working together from the get-go as well. So it's all about, like trying to form our relationship and get it to that forming, storming, performing, while also looking after a business. So very, very challenging.
It was turbulent, wasn't it?
It was. But a true relationship is two imperfect people refusing to give up on each other.
We got that little quote. We did. We just kept putting ourselves back together again. So, like Jane said, we didn't have the honeymoon period. It was like bang. It was straight. It was almost like all the baggage that we had brought that we thought we'd worked through actually. So through my divorce and being on my own, and through James being on his own, we were under this illusion that we'd come together and we were kind of, I don't know, somehow just a much more well-rounded and better formed person. And to a degree, we were, but we were like mirrors to each other of the stuff that still wasn't healed, and that, still needed to be worked through. And it was really intense at the beginning. Like James said, I moved country. We both had massive trust issues, but the love and faith we had with each other, there was something there that made us hang on to each other. And the love and faith we had was really all that we had to hang on to. When most people would have given up on each other, we never walked away. Almost did a few times, didn't we?
Certainly.
I definitely packed my bags a couple of times, but we stayed together and worked through it. And it's that unconditional love that we have now that we do want to share with you, but also some extra tips around. Well, we're going to go into them, aren't we?
Yeah, I would say this is also true. You don't necessarily have to have come to a new relationship. You could be in a long-term relationship, be experiencing like similar things. Obviously, as time goes on, we grow and develop as people. Sometimes we'll develop with our partner. Sometimes we might go in slightly different directions. So this applies to you, whether you're, single and looking for a relationship, in a new-ish relationship, or in a long-established relationship. A lot of these themes and issues we're going to discuss are going to be applicable to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're just going to talk about tip number 1 now. So tip number 1 is, we would say, is the most important one to start with, to be quite honest with you, and that is to turn inward. Well, what do we mean by that? We mean become reflective and very self-aware. So when James just mentioned there, if you've been in a relationship for a long time, when couples have been together for a long time, or even when they haven't, but this is quite prevalent when we've been together with someone for a long time, we think we know each other, and we begin to assume what the other person's thinking and what their motivations are. And so we get angry and reactive to the assumptions that we're making. But the truth is, honestly, that your frustration, your anger may be entirely coming from an argument that you're having in your own head, not the reality of the situation. James is laughing.
Yeah, well, this leads to something I have a particular bugbear with, and it's like currently phrases like narcissist and emotional abuse are thrown around a lot. Listen, I'm not saying it's not out there. It is out there. People, there are emotional abusers out there.
Absolutely.
There are narcissists out there. But we've got to say now, people like someone's 10 minutes late to turn up for their drinks. They're like, oh, it's gaslighting. They were trying to see if they could get control of the situation by being late when they said they wouldn't be late.
It's about taking responsibility.
Sometimes we need to take responsibility for our own actions. I'm not saying that behaviour is never excusable, but just be aware of yourself and your own reactions, and also think, am I overreacting? Am I putting a lens on the other person that might not necessarily be true?
Well, exactly. So what we want to talk about there is like projection. We all have our own worldview that's unique to us, created by past memories like trauma and behaviours. And like James just said, a word on this, it's not to pass the blame and make unhealthy behaviour okay. So looking inward and taking responsibility isn't to deny that you might be being treated in a way that is not appropriate. You've got to have boundaries that protect your physical and mental well-being. Obviously, staying in an unsafe relationship is not what we're talking about here. And if that is you, please do reach out and seek help. But, this is why we want to start with this one. You do need to look at yourself and take responsibility, and just consider if you are being externally focused rather internally focused. So ask yourself, this is just some of the questions that are really, really good to ask yourself if you're getting triggered all the time. What is triggering me and why? What might I be projecting onto the other person here? I do this all the time, so does Jane, but I do this all the time. Sometimes I'm frustrated at myself. I'm angry at myself. There's some stuff that needs healing within myself. And rather than dealing with that myself and taking responsibility for that, sometimes it's a lot easier to just let rip at someone else and let it all out at someone else, that frustration and that anger, because a lot of the time we can't deal with looking inward. So looking at where the pain is in me and what belief systems I have around that has been really important in this relationship with James. I think about, am I projecting my own stuff, my own insecurities? Here's the truth. We all need to be fulfilled individually rather than expecting our partner to fulfill every need. It's a really heavy burden on them, and believe me, they will feel that heavy burden. So look at your expectations. Do you see the responsibility of happiness lying in your partner's hands? And if so, why? Why are you expecting that other person to make you happy? We're not saying, again, let that person treat you badly, but looking outside yourself for happiness is the surest way to be unhappy. You've got to start cultivating it. Happiness is an inside job. When we look for external validation, that's where things go wrong. And one other thing on this as well, stop externally comparing. Every relationship is different. Don't compare your relationship to Joe Bloggs down the road, because granted, they will have their own issues and their own problems, and you're only probably seeing the highlight reels like we always do on the digital world. Just focus. The grass is greener where you water it. So focus on your own relationship and what you could be doing to make it better.
Yeah, I mean, this was a big lesson for me in my personal development, was looking inward and seeing what I could do better and how I could be better as a person, and where did I need to look for validation within myself rather than like looking for external factors. And it's equal. The thing is, if you're always looking for external things, here's the bombshell: you're not going to be happy ever, because it means you're making your dependence on happiness is dependent upon an external thing which can be taken away at any time. Learn to cultivate within. Yeah,
absolutely. There's so much power in starting to love and nurture yourself. That's kind of one of our tips, to be honest, in a minute. But loving and nurturing yourself is the surest way to feel grounded and powerful in yourself, so that you're not swayed by what someone else is doing or what's going on around you so much. You're actually like a tree with the roots nice and firmly grounded. You can be swayed like the top, the leaves and everything in the branches, but you're firmly rooting in a self-love and a self-belief and your own happiness. So, tip number 2.
Tip 2, massive at midlife.
This is huge.
Understand your hormones, right? So whether you're male or female, our hormones are going to play a role in how we feel. They're going to play a role in how our bodies behave, in how our libido behaves, on what our focus, our concentration levels are like. So we're talking here mainly, obviously, about the menopause, and for men, the male menopause. And so what's happening here is for both genders, essentially, their primary sex hormones are declining. For women, estrogen; for men, testosterone. That is going to impact you in a number of ways, right? For both sexes, it means you're going to have less energy, less focus. You might start to feel less happy about your body, your physicality, if you're not taking steps to work with those hormonal changes. If you're not eating healthily, if you're not moving your body, then likely you're going to start to lose your muscle mass, which means your metabolism will slow, which means you'll start to put on body fat, particularly around, you start not to like what you see in the mirror. Also, falling levels of these sex hormones are linked to low mood, depression, anxiety, of course, low libido as well. Why this is so important is like open up and have a conversation about it, because often, with couples we speak to, there's a mismatch, right? The libido could be fluctuating or generally low. One partner is feeling like they want to make an effort, so attempts to initiate some intimacy. The other one's not feeling it, or maybe last time that it didn't go so well for them, so they're like, oh no, I'm not at the moment. Partner one then feels rejected, so that makes it worse. And you get to this what we call a psychosexual spiral, right? It's not just the actual hormonal, physiological, but there's a whole psychological thing coming into play as well. If you can be open and honest, go, you know what? I've had a long day, I'm not feeling great, I'm not feeling energized. You can have the open conversations about it. It's what I encourage you all to do. Whether you're, whatever relationship you're in, have an honest and open relationship with your partner about, how you're feeling and what's going on for you.
Yeah, and this is why we love talking about hormones for the men and for women, and actually bringing those two conversations together from the male and the female perspective. And we do get asked to talk about the male menopause and female menopause together. Because I think it is really, really important that men and women aren't necessarily understanding what's going on for each other. It's, of course, the menopause for women is just so much more complex. But that doesn't disregard what the men are going through at midlife, and actually having some compassion around that is really key as well to bring relationships together. So, tip number 3. This is really key, okay? Nurture, respect, and invest in your health. So, mainly, well, actually, there's 2 parts to this. Working in line with your hormones is going to help you feel more energized, alive, and vital. So what James has just said there about hormones, what we can do when we exercise and eat well and look after ourselves is we're working in line with our hormones to create more energy, more vitality, and feeling more alive and positive. Also, you're focusing on you, which is what we kind of said a minute ago. It's so sexy. It's so attractive. So ask yourself, like, am I looking after myself here? What's my self-care regime like? What's my exercise, nutrition, supplements, my stress management? Because looking after yourself stops you being totally reliant on your partner for your own identity. You're going out there, you're taking your power back. It builds self-respect. It builds self-confidence, which is really, really infectious. So one of the things that we would say is, like, if you're not respecting yourself here, and the only home you have, which is your body, and you're not nurturing yourself, you're not looking after yourself, just ask how that might come across to the other person. Of course, this is for you. This is about making sure that you're healthy, that you're happy. But also, we all know that when someone's looking after themselves, it's sexy, it's infectious. So, I mean, I always want to be the best version of myself for myself, but I also want to be the best version of myself for James. I won't ever let myself kind of down or, let myself go with I'm not feeling comfortable in my own skin, because I know if I don't feel comfortable in my own skin, I'm not going to be the best version of myself for him or for anyone else.
And listen, I'm not going to tiptoe on the eggshells here. Let's talk about sex for a minute. We know at midlife, with these hormonal changes and the way your body's going, loss of libido can be a big factor for both men and women. There is research out there. We know because we're going to research it. Here's the thing, right? Men who are very physically active, who train at intensity regularly, have 10 times lower incidence of erectile dysfunction than men who are sedentary, i.e. they have a much better sex life. The same findings for women. Women who are physically active, especially like do HIIT training, again, had higher sex drive and much more active libidos. These are all midlife cohorts than women who were sedentary.
Listen to that, people.
So, it's not just about looking and feeling better in yourself, actually like physiologically improving your libido
because
and sex
of course,
drive.
obviously psychologically, if you're feeling more confident, then that's going to play out in your relationship. Physiologically, it's a massive benefit. So really, start looking after yourself in order to benefit your relationship. Tip number 4.
Tip 4, communication. So, obviously, communication is key. And one thing is learning your partner's style. Now, if you're in a long-term relationship, you might think you've learnt your partner's style out. But here's the thing, I bet you're still having miscommunications. And here's some general tips. Whether you're in an established relationship, new relationship, looking to get into a relationship, you need to set the right tone for healthy communication.
Don't try and do it as someone's falling asleep in bed.
No. It sounds silly. Pick the right moment, we've got all these memes, but, how many women, the guys just sat down to watch the big match on TV and they're like, oh, we need to have a talk. Not the right time.
Or when a woman is feeding her children and the husband wants to come in and talk about going on holiday.
Not the right time. So pick your time, be sensitive to your partner. You might be burning, desperate to get this out. If your partner's looking knackered, or they're obviously into something else at that moment in time, just wait till it's the right time.
We still get this wrong all the time. Still get this wrong, but then we catch each other on it and we're like, sorry.
Use we instead of you, so you're not passing attributions or blame to the other person. Although when I say things like, oh, we didn't tidy the house very well, Claire goes mad. Ooh, we left the kitchen in a mess.
This is always James, by the way, but we can laugh about it. Here's the difference. It will always be James that leaves the kitchen in the mess.
I use the royal we. The royal we.
Lovely.
Make sure you focus on listening. A lot of us can get so caught up in wanting to get our point across. How often does this happen to you? You're in the conversation and you're not really listening to what the other person's saying because you're thinking about what you want to say next. Therefore, you're missing like a vital part of the communication. So focus on your listening. If you need to, pause. It's all right to sit there quietly and think about what your partner said and then reply.
Sometimes James just does that and has forgotten what the question was. James will just be, I'm thinking. I'm like, no, you've just completely gone off on you've got brain fog. Male menopause.
I am thinking hard.
Male menopause, brain fog.
I process deeply. Make sure you've set clear boundaries. Here's the thing, a lot of confusion can arise when we haven't set clear boundaries with each other. You know, what's acceptable, what's not, what's blurred.
Don't be afraid to do that.
Don't be afraid to do that, but also don't be afraid to compromise. We're taught compromise is a bad thing, but any part of a relationship is about compromises to some respect while not losing your individuality.
I always have to go and pick up the empty toilet roll.
You
toilet rolls around every bathroom.
I made a toilet roll robot the other day out of all the ones you'd left lying around.
That's me compromising. As I see another one. I just sent a picture of one the other day. I took a photo of it in the bathroom and just sent it to him. And I got back, oops. It's oops.
So yeah, make sure you are clear on your boundaries, but don't be afraid to compromise to make things go harmoniously. One thing you can do is an exercise we teach people, comes from NLP, is using perceptual positions. So this is, we can always get caught up in our own worldview, right? When we're having a conversation with someone, we're very focused on me, what I'm saying, what I'm doing, what I want to get across. If we can learn to take a step back from that and actually step inside the other person's head, as it were, and think, hold on a minute, how am I coming across to this person? What might they be feeling? What do they want to say? What do they want to get across? That's like position 1 is you, position 2 is them. Position 3 is step outside of both of you. Just imagine you were like completely objective observer watching the two of you. What would you take
really
away
powerful.
from that? What would you take away from that? And sometimes you'd be like, oh my goodness, I'm being really unreasonable here. If someone was watching this, I would come across really badly. And it can just help you bring awareness and again, open those new channels of communication. So that's it, perceptual positions. Remember that one. I always say this, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy?
I love that.
Yeah.
Just actually consider that. Sometimes when we're really, really fired up and we really want to make a point, but actually sometimes just stepping back and giving yourself a moment and just thinking, do I want to be right or do I want to be happy? Like, what am I really trying to get out of this? What's the outcome? Where's this going to lead to? Because it's not going to lead to happiness if I kick off about this. So actually, do I just want to take a few moments and I'd rather be happy? Thanks very much. And, just remember that communication does create amazing connection. So next tip number 5 is to prioritise. Give yourself permission to prioritise yourself and each other. So ask yourself, how important is your relationship? Are you slowing down and making space for it? Mm-hmm. It's so easy. James and I still find the balance of this. We're still finding our feet with this, working together, trying to find time to go on date nights where we don't talk about work and all that sort of stuff. It's easy to put everything else first, especially if you have children, aging parents, you've got your job, you've got financial pressures. It's really, really easy to get caught up in all of that and actually put your relationship right down at the bottom of the pile. But what's the cost? What's the cost of not prioritising your relationship? We say we don't have time. There is always time. Do not fool yourself that there's not enough time to make time for your relationship. Do you sit on the internet even for 5 minutes? Right? Do you sit on a scroll hole on social media? Do you sit and watch Netflix? There is time in your day to make a connection with your partner. One thing we would say is it might feel quite controlled and not very natural, but make time for dates and sex. It might feel a bit weird at first. It's time to get into bed and have sex. But the thing is, if you don't do that, because we've got such busy lives, it's never going to happen. If you don't plan it, don't prioritise and plan it, it's never going to happen. And just remember, once that starts to become a good, healthy habit, momentum breeds momentum. It won't feel so odd. It's just that you've got out of the habit of prioritising your relationship. Another thing, ask each other questions. Be intimate, hold hands. It doesn't mean jumping in the sack together, but ask questions, hold hands with each other. And here's the thing as well, I said this at the beginning, prioritise time for yourself too, so not just for each other. Because again, that whole health, one of the tips around prioritising your health and your wellness, prioritise that for yourself because it's inspiring, it's sexy. You will feel like you are giving from a a cup that is half full, not half empty. You will be able to give more of yourself when you are prioritising yourself, and you'll come back new and refreshed back together, able to communicate from a different way if you've given yourself time as well. So one of the things James and I weren't good at right at the beginning, because we were in the situation we were in, we weren't very good at allowing each other. It wasn't a conscious thing, but we didn't want to go off and do our own thing because we kind of felt tied to each other from the business in a sense. We had this real... I certainly did, like a real guilt feeling about going off and doing other things on my own where I could be working and supporting James. And I felt if I stepped away from that, that somehow gave a signal to James that I wasn't interested in the business or I wanted time alone. It's really important to have time alone. And do your own thing, have your own interests. It's really sexy, and we've learnt that, and now we go off and do our own thing, and it's really brought us closer together.
One point I'd like to think about here, this is just something that might bring illumination to you, is just think about the last 48 hours. Obviously, exclude the time you spent sleeping. So of your waking hours of the last 48, how much of that time did you spend on screens as opposed to interacting with your partner?
Making eye contact. When's the last time you made really deep eye contact with your partner? They're the windows to the soul. I always make, James has got, they're the first thing that I ever saw across a crowded gym. I met James in the gym in Ibiza, and it was his eyes. And eyes are so beautiful and so profound, and you see such connection. Hopefully you do. And if you don't, and it's been a bit of a long time since you've really connected with each other's eyes, just take it slowly. But when was the last time you really, really looked your partner in the eyes? It's really important, really important. And tip number 6.
Acceptance and appreciation. Listen, we all change as we age, and we grow as people, we're through our experiences. So we need to accept that we've evolved and changed. And it can be really difficult if we're in a relationship where we seem that the other one maybe is changing more than we want them to, or we feel we're changing more than is comfortable for us or is comfortable for our partner. And there might be a sense of grief even for who we were or who they might have been. Listen, forgive yourself and your partner, and here's the thing, it's about focus. So look for the good, not the bad. And how many of us end up in this thing and start going, oh no, you haven't done the dishes again, you haven't done this again, you haven't done that again. We tend to focus on the negative things. What about the good things your partner does? Stop right now, make a list of like the good things, the good qualities, the good things that are about your partner. And then think about doing nice things together. Because you're both growing, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to grow apart. You may do, and if you do, then that's something you have to face together and make decisions about whether you want to try and reconnect and grow together in a direction, or whether you're better to go your own ways. But equally, you can grow together as well. And here's the thing, having your own areas of interest is great, but also so is having shared interests, shared hobbies as well. So be interested in each other. Remember why you fell in love in the first place. And do that positive aspects list and look at it, because it can be all too easy to get caught up, the humdrum, the mundane, and they didn't do this, they didn't do that. Look at the positive stuff.
I just want to say as well, like just on that forgiveness piece, it's really, really important that if you can't let go and forgive yourself or the other one, if you can't do that, then being in a relationship with that person where you're harbouring resentment and that stuff and not forgiving, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. We don't have to forget what might have happened, but we do need to forgive. We need to forgive ourselves, and we need to forgive our partner in order to move on to the next level of our relationship. We really, really do. And that's a process. It won't happen overnight. But we need to let go of those things in order to evolve into a better relationship. So if you can't let it go, and you've been trying to let it go, then, it's that first point, isn't it? Going inward, seeing what else needs healing within you. And if you still can't forgive, if it's something that your partner's done, and you can't forgive something your partner's done, hanging on to each other for dear life and, making each other miserable, and harbouring all that resentment is only ruining both of your lives and potentially other people's as well. So, but it's about forgiving yourself too. If there's something that you may have done or things that you could have done better, let it go now, because it's just eating you up and it's poisoning you from the inside out. So just let yourself be free from that if you can, and if you can't, then that's another step in a different direction. So Last one, number 7. James kind of touched on it slightly there. Plan goals together. So when
Couples that play together
stay together. When was the last time you discussed your goals for the future? Are you even on the same page? And what are your values? Values are really, really important, right? Because this is the second act of our life. You know, what are the values that you've got coming up for the second act of your life? Are they aligned? You know, it's really, you know, the midlife, we always say midlife, some people see it like staring down the barrel of a gun, or you can see it as this massive reinvention, this massive transformation where you can be really excited together about what's to come. You can keep it alive and check in with each other. And as James said, couples that play together, stay together. So make sure that you spend that time discussing your goals and making sure that you're on the same page, and then you can get excited, listen to them. What are their aspirations? What are their dreams? When was the last time you asked them that? So there we are. That is the final tip. And we hope you found that useful.
Yeah,
we love doing this. And our last little snippet of advice, little wise words here as we round up this are, James, would you like to read this?
Yeah. Without communication, there is no relationship. Without respect, there is no love. Without trust, there's no reason to continue. Listen, we hope you found that useful. We would love to hear your thoughts, your feedback. As always, pop us an email, team@themidlifementors.com. Join our free Facebook community, which is growing all the time, the Midlife Mentors community on Facebook.
On Instagram, we are what, James?
Midlife Mentors.
Yeah, so at Midlife Mentors on Instagram. That's growing all the time. It's really, really exciting. We've got lots of new projects coming out. And please do share this with anyone that you think might find this useful. You know, we are now in the top 1.5% of global podcasts, which is amazing. So our reach is getting more, and we're able to help and serve more people through this podcast. And it's, you know, this is 3 years old now, and it's just been an absolute pleasure. And we've connected with so many people and been able to help so many people. So if you do know someone that would find this particular podcast really helpful, do point them in the right direction, and subscribe, share, and leave a review. A nice one, obviously. But we're sending you so much love, and do let us know how you found this podcast. Bye.
Yeah.
You've been listening to the Midlife Mentors with Claire and James Davis.
We'd love to hear from you. So drop us a line at info@themidlifementors.com with any questions or topic suggestions.
And make sure you join us on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. You can find us under the Midlife Mentors.
Yeah. What? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.